Hello again. I'm ready to start another session, and this is actually going to be a series. I'm going to be talking about the Logos, the Tao, and the Hermetica, and how they all tie in to Panpsychism, and how the concept of the Logos, or the Word, being the creative source, is ubiquitous for at least 5,000 years. And this will be shown by looking at the Hermetica and the Tao, spelled T-A-O, was written by Lao Tse in 500 BC. So this corresponds with the Stoics, and the Greek philosophers were also talking about the Word. But the concept of the Word, or the Logos, was actually brought to Greece by Pythagoras, and he allegedly got the idea from Egypt and Samaria. And Pythagoras is certainly known today for his mathematical acumen and what he did for mathematics. But Pythagoras' main claim to fame, in my view, is that he was an occultist and into metaphysics, and he was into the nature of reality and what causes the universe. And so it's in this vein that I want to look at the concept of the Logos, which is a Greek word, and the Tao, which is Chinese, and the Hermetica, which is also a Greek word, but it was originally Egyptian through what they called thought, T-H-O-T, T-H-O-H-T, who later became Hermes Trismegistus in the Greek concept. But all of these sources spoke of the Word being the creative source. And we'll also refer a little bit to Genesis 1, because in that creation story, you see that in the beginning, God said. There again, you have the concept of the Word being the creative source. And so I think that we can spend some time with this particular idea and do a series, because I want to keep these around 14, 15 minutes, and I'm pretty sure that we can't get anywhere near covering what I want to cover in that period of time. So we will take whatever time it is. I don't know whether it'll be 2 sessions or 3 sessions or 5 sessions. I'm just going to let it flow as it does. But the whole concept starts out with Christianity taking a view that I think is a wrong-headed view, and that is by insisting that the Logos is a creative source via or virtue of John 1:1, where it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God." And it goes on to say that everything was made by the Word, and that without the Word nothing was made that was made. So it seems to me like, especially evangelical Christians, but Orthodox Christians as well, act as if that's an original concept with John. And that's just not true. That is as far from the truth as can be. Now, there is a unique thing in John that we'll talk about that I mentioned a little bit last time, and that was where John says, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us." And also, I pointed out before, and I'm going to reiterate it here because I think it's important that in John 1, 10 through 13, it states that the Word, or the Logos, was in the world before the Logos became flesh. And that it was in the world, and the world didn't receive it, didn't understand it, didn't recognize it. He goes on to say that he came to his own, or it came to his own. I like to use that because I don't think that the word has gender. I don't think that it's appropriate to speak of the word in gender until we get to the point where the word becomes incarnate. And then if it's incarnate in Jesus, of course it's he. If it's incarnate in me, and it is, then it's he. If you're listening or watching this and you happen to be female, then the word has become flesh in you, and it could be called she. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with referring to the word as it. Okay, so I want to make sure that we grasp the concept that if the universe, if the nature of reality is consciousness, then the active, creative, energetic force of consciousness, according to the ancients, all the way up through the Apostle John, is the Word. But it isn't just that. I'll give you an example. If you look at the Tao, or the Tao, then Lao Tse says that he calls it the ineffable Tao, meaning that it really can't be understood, but that it expresses itself, and it is the mother, not the father, interesting, but it is the mother of all created things. So when Lao Tzu says it expresses itself, he's speaking directly as if it's the word, because it is energetic thought that expresses itself through creativity. So let me run by the definition of panpsychic again, because they all tie together. And I want to reiterate that panpsychism, in my view, is not a religion. Now, there are religions that are based on panpsychism. For example, pantheism and panentheism essentially incorporate panpsychism. But panpsychism is merely an explanation of reality, or the nature of reality, that states that at the core, at the foundation of the material universe, of all materiality, of corporeal reality, at the very source of that is mentation, or thought, or consciousness. I also want to emphasize here that when we look at the Greek concept logos and the word, we are really speaking about consciousness. So when in John 1:14, actually let me back up here a minute, because I want to explain. I think I got sidetracked when I was talking about John 1:10 through 13. It was in the world. The world didn't recognize it or receive it, but there were some that did receive it. And all of those that received the word were given the ability to be children of the divine. In John's Gospel it says, become the sons of God. And of course, that was a patristic society, a patriarchal society, I should say. And so it was very, very male-centric. So if you take a look at the more modern translations of the scripture, it says, to those he, and again it calls the word he, and realize that I'm saying that I think a better descriptor is it, but it doesn't really matter whether you call it or he. It was in the world, and it was not received by most, but it was received by some. And the many that received it, the ones that became offspring of deity, were the mystics and the prophets and the enlightened ones. As I stated last time, I want to reiterate this because I want to make sure that this point is well received and understood. There was a time in my theological transition that I just naturally believed that coming to his own and not being received by his own was coming to the Jews and being rejected by the Jews. But the grammar doesn't support that. Because the Logos, or it, was in the world before the Word became flesh. Because it's in John 14, or John 1:14, that we finally hear that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld, John says, his glory as of the only begotten Son of the Father. Now, there's another thing that I want to get straight right now that's important in this discussion as we go forward with it. Father, Son, and Spirit are metaphors. Notice that I had already said with Taoism that the ineffable Tao was the mother of all. Again, that's a metaphor. The mother of all creation, the mother of all created things. It's a metaphor. The same as Father is a metaphor. And the same as Son is a metaphor, because later on I'm going to read to you from the Hermetica at some point a passage that is at least 5,000 years old, based on the fact that it exists on the walls of a pyramid in Saqqara, Egypt, written in hieroglyphics. But I will read you a passage where it talks about, the Word being the offspring or the son of deity. That is a fact. I will read it to you. It is not something that I'm just making up. So the whole concept of deity being the father or the mother, and the Word or the creative source being the Son, is ubiquitous throughout the millennia. And it is important in really understanding, in my view, just how long Panpsychism has been the order of the day with philosophical and religious thinkers. And I think that it's important, and I want to tie this up, and we're getting close to the time again, but if I run over a little bit, forgive me on this. I won't go too long. But this is most important because cognitive science and quantum mechanics and biological science, especially at the cutting edge, is now discovering that the universe is created by consciousness, that it is mentation. And so there's a full circle that started out back with Hermes. That's where I'm going to begin it with. Hermes and thought. And it moves on through the Greeks to Philo, who was a Greek Jewish philosopher, to ultimately the Apostle John. And then let's jump forward to the 21st century. And Donald Hoffman, a cognitive scientist that has written a book called The Case Against Reality. And actually, it's easy to read. I would suggest you pick up a copy and look at it. But also, if you're really interested in a scientific biologist that has developed the idea of fields of morphic resonance, then also look at the YouTube presentations of Rupert Sheldrake. And you will see that there is a circle. That we start out with the metaphysical way back, speaking the same thing that cognitive scientists are beginning to discover. Now, I'm going to leave it here for now. I want you to like, I want you to subscribe, I want you to tell your friends about it, to share. I want to get this message out to as many people as I can. And again, I'm not dodging the fact that I promised that my wife was going to be with me on this, doing other discussions as well, because she surely will. But it's going to be a week or two. And so I will probably have at least one more of these sessions before the two of us get on. And then the two of us will take up with these sessions as well. And again, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this. And like, subscribe, share, please. I want to get this message out. And understand that you are loved by the universe. And that you are the incarnation of the divine, a creative source. Keep that in mind. And whether you're watching it morning, noon, afternoon, evening, or in the middle of the night, thank you.